Hey everyone, welcome to the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and your co-host,
Kevin Toffel.
And we have an awesome show for you today. We are going to be talking about the new Easy Mesh Wi-Fi standard, Sigfox's brand new connectivity as a service, plus a crazy sensor for Sigfox networks. We're also found a hub that you're going to want to hear about because it allows for local control in your house. And we've got a bunch of little bits of news, including new lights from Philips, a cool intercom system for families, and data on who owns a smart home device. Plus, Kevin is going to share his opinion on the Wyze Camera V2, and he also got a Yale lock, so we can talk a little bit more about that. Our guest this week is Chris Myers from Misty Robotics. This is a smart programmable robot aimed at developers, and if I had the money, I would totally buy one for Kevin. Our sponsor this week is MachineQ, a Comcast service, and you can look forward to hearing from them in the middle of the show. And now, a message from one of our new sponsors, Bosch. Are you interested in all things IoT? The Bosch Connected World blog covers a wide range of IoT topics from around the world, such as Industry 4.0, mobility, smart home, blockchain, and agriculture tech. Check out the blog at blog.bosch-si.com for articles, case studies, interviews, and more. And I will say a lot of these corporate blogs run promotional. This one is one I actually read on a regular basis to see what's happening and what cool things people are doing. So do go check it out. All right, Kevin, big news of the week, Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi Alliance has certified something called Easy Mesh. That is like the Easy Bake Oven, only it's an Easy Mesh network, which means your mesh networks will all, going forward, work together.
Regardless of brand or vendor.
Yes, and this is a big deal because right now if you buy like an Orbi, you had to buy the Orbi main thing that I can't remember what they call it, and then the Orbi satellites, and you cannot like swap out like an Asus satellite to work with your Orbi satellite. And, you know, this gets sad. It inhibits price competition. You know, it's not great. So now we have the ability for everything to work together, which is actually something that Kevin and I have talked about for a really long time. But there is a fly in the Easy Mesh Wi-Fi ointment.
There is, and that's because there really has been a standard for mesh networking, and it is IEEE 802.11s. And current mesh networks either use some of it or created their own stuff, and that's why things aren't, compatible these days between, say, a Google Wi-Fi and a Orbi and an Eero and a Plume, etc. So now with adoption of this standard from the Wi-Fi Alliance, you would think this is great news, and in theory it is. But I'm a little concerned because I've seen some research from last year that says the global market, global spend on wireless mesh networking has already topped over $5 billion, and it's expected to be around $11 billion by 2025. So there's a lot of non-compatible mesh stuff out there. I don't see any information showing this stuff is all backwards compatible. So that means if you already have a mesh network system, I don't think you're going to be able to mix and match in the future without at least upgrading your router. And that's not something I think most people do on a regular basis. It's not like a smart light or a switch. I mean, that's...
Yeah, we all did it like 2 years ago to get into mesh, and that was it.
Right. We did it before that for 802.11, AC or N, whatever you might have chosen at the time. AX is coming. That's going to be even faster, which is great. But honestly, I don't see this as backwards compatible. And I sort of wonder, what's the incentive for these companies to open up the walls and say, yeah, no, we'll work with anybody here? I don't see the incentive to them.
It may be because a mesh is an important aspect of like a good smart home system, and a lot of these companies are getting into those other devices. It might also be pressure from the ISPs, which for a while, consumers, they went with ISP routers and kind of whatever their ISP gave them. So maybe they adopted this because they realized that that's the way the world is going to go now.
Maybe the ISPs then adopt this, and for many people, you're right, that would be their new router that they either rent or buy directly, and then the compatibility is a bonus. I get that.
So yeah, if you wanted to sell an extra, basically it allows them to get into an easier extender market for like crappy Wi-Fi routers that your ISP provides, maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know. It sounded good when I saw the headline. It didn't feel so good as I thought it through. I don't know,
Kevin doesn't know.
I don't know. I literally just replaced a router, actually. So, it is rare, but the only reason I did it was not to get faster speeds or anything like that. It was because it just happened to fall off a table and broke. The antennas came desoldered and some pieces fell off, and I questioned the integrity of it. Otherwise, I'd still have this router that I bought in 2015.
Wow. Was that the Google router?
That was the original Google OnHub, which was software flashed to become essentially a Google Wi-Fi unit. So yes, and I replaced it with a Google Wi-Fi unit. So now I have 2 Wi-Fi units instead of an OnHub and a Wi-Fi.
Cool. Speaking of networks, let's talk about a low-power wide area network. So these are the big networks. These are networks that cover cities or big regional areas, whole countries possibly. There are 2 flavors. There are the unlicensed bands, and then there are licensed by those made by cellular companies. So the cellular flavors of this are Cat M1 and NB-IoT. Now, what we're going to be talking about is Sigfox, which is doing their own proprietary network in unlicensed bands. So Sigfox is launching a new sensor device called the Sensit Discovery. And they, not as part of this, but a week ago, also launched something they are calling Connectivity as a Service, or CAS. Please, no one ever use the phrase CAS in talking to me. So basically all it is they're going to ship you a base station, a Sigfox-enabled base station, if you want to try using their network in your farm fields or perhaps your warehouse. So this makes a ton of sense because they've been trying to cover the US, but can't cover the whole US just randomly. That takes billions of dollars. So what they're doing is if you're like, hey, I really like the look of your network, but you don't have a coverage area here. How can I do this? They're like, you know what? If you've got Ethernet or 3G, we'll send you a base station. You plug that right in and you are good to go.
It's almost like the base stations that the carriers used to provide when you had poor cellular service in your home. You would connect that to your Ethernet connection or your Wi-Fi, and would create a mini cell area.
A femtocell.
That's it, femtocell.
Yes, and this is actually what our sponsor, MachineQ, also does. And they're doing a different version of a low-power wide area network. They're doing LoRaWAN, but they do say they're network agnostic. So there you go. But anyway, this is going to be a common thing for getting these networks spread out over more places. It makes a ton of sense. It's basically build it as you need it. And Kevin, do you want to talk about this Sensit device, which looks pretty cool?
Yeah, I like this. It's a really small sensor, weighs about 2 ounces, and it detects up to 5 different things: temperature, light, motion, humidity, and vibration. Oh, it also has magnets in it, so you can use it like a door open-close sensor, for example. And it just collects all that data and sends it to you through the Sigfox network. And then you can presumably do whatever it is you like, with some automations or things like that. Or maybe you just want to, stare at the data. That's up to you as well. So I don't know how much this costs. You can sign up for it now. It's kind of been in beta for a while. But, I like it. It's a nice little sensor.
Yes, and presumably you'll need a Sigfox gateway for this.
Yeah, I'd love to put this in my mailbox down the street.
Well, so this actually, we weren't going to talk about this. This is not on the show notes. I'm deviating from the show notes, you guys. But I actually just bought a device because I want to measure temperature and humidity in my daughter's classrooms because they're in a portable building. And she complains that it's too hot and too stuffy. And the school is like, I'm sure it's just fine. We've got air conditioning out there. So I decided, well, let's see what it's really like. And
look at you, parent with the sensors and the data.
I know.
Wow.
I'm not a helicopter parent. Heat triggers her migraines, y'all. It's terrible. Anyway, so what happens is I was like, I thought I was going to actually use another product from one of our sponsors, the Twilio SIM, and actually just use that as the connection for an Arduino that was going to have sensors on it. But because I didn't think the school was going to let me onto their Wi-Fi network. But the school said, yeah, you can come in on the Wi-Fi network. That's totally fine.
Wow.
So now I just bought it was $90 on sale, an Aware Glow. So Aware makes a air quality monitoring sensor that's $200, but the Glow is like this nightlight outlet plus air quality sensor. And that's only, I think it retails for like $105. So I bought that instead. The bottom line being the Sensit would have also worked for that. That was a long way of telling you guys about this. And next week I'll talk about how it works and all that fun stuff.
Just out of curiosity, I still want to hear about it next week, but I don't know, I'm not familiar with the device. So because it's called Glow, is there any visual notification of
There is, well, there's 2 things. There's a nightlight. So there's a nightlight component that turns on and off, and you can control it through Google Home. And then there's also a light on top that glows green, yellow, or red, depending on the air quality. And
okay. And I was just thinking it would be interesting for the kids to see the information. I mean, you're going to get the data, but it would be nice for them to see something.
Well, unless it's red, and then the school might unplug it and give it back to me.
Oh, but you'll already have the data, so problem solved.
There we go. Everything is a learning experience.
Your classroom's getting an upgrade.
So that's the Sigfox news. And here, this is, I think, really cool, especially for a lot of our listeners who write in every week to complain about having their data in the cloud. And there are a lot of you. So this is a device called Hubitat. That's Hubitat. And it's a $159 smart hub. One of the founders is actually one of the guys who created the rules engine for SmartThings. So this is a device kind of built with kind of the SmartThings experience in mind, but the owner controls it. So you plug this in, you connect your devices to it, you create the network, and then all the device data stays local. It doesn't go anywhere. And if you want to update or grab maybe some new apps or something for your Hubitat, you pull it down at your request.
I like this, and I had looked into it a couple weeks ago as I was researching hubs, and I should note that right now I'm on the site. It's actually down to $115 in the US. Yeah.
That is so cheap.
It is, and that includes the hub, a USB stick, which includes Zigbee and Z-Wave. It's got an Ethernet cable. So, yeah, I kind of like the idea of this, and I know a lot of our listeners will as well because of the local aspect of it.
Yes. So for this hub, what's also cool is while everything can be done locally, it also can go out and talk to cloud-based applications, which means it will work with Madam A, which is our shorthand for the Amazon Echo's digital assistant. We just don't want to set off yours. So it works with that. It works, I believe, with IFT and things like your Lutron hub, if you have that, your Hubridge, your Sonoses, and a bunch of other existing devices that you might have in your house. So it's pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, I love the fact that aside from the data not going up to the cloud, if your internet does go out, this still works 100%. I mean, that's because it's all local. Yeah, your Wi-Fi obviously is still going to be around. You're not going to be able to do anything else with your internet or your network other than move files around, but you still have everything working here.
Yes, and it works with a lot of the brands we talk about, like LifeX, Somfy, Schlage, Samsung, Aeotech, Bosch, Fabaro. I don't see Ecobee on here, and I don't see Nest. Oh, but I do see Nanoleaf. Woo!
Yeah.
So lots of products out there that this will work with, and more will be coming all the time as people build device drivers.
You know, I was just going to say, you can build your own apps and device drivers with this, and that reminds me of the handlers for SmartThings, which has a pretty active community. And I know you couldn't just take SmartThings handlers, but I wonder if the folks
They're both based on Groovy.
Ooh, see, so I wonder, because the Fabaro folks, they provide some device handlers, for example, for SmartThings that you can download. That's how you get your Fabaro devices to work with SmartThings. I wonder if they're doing the same thing here, in which case there's a lot of potential here.
There is totally a lot of potential. And
on the cheap.
On the cheap. So if you guys are interested in that, and I should warn you, they are very clear in saying that this is for people who really want to play with this stuff. This is not yet for people who want something that they can set and forget that's easy.
So most of our peeps.
I just want you
Not everybody.
For the people who are like, and Kevin, I know you're excited, but you did not love your SmartThings experience. So I'm curious if you will love this experience.
But that wasn't for the... It wasn't because I had to tinker. No, I don't mind tinkering. I love to tinker, believe me. But that wasn't it. It just didn't do it for me. Yeah. The experience wasn't there for me.
Well, either Kevin or I will try this out. We'll fight over who gets to try this. And
you can try it if you're going to buy me a Misty 2 robot.
Oh, don't get ahead of yourself, my friend. Those are a bit more expensive. All right, so those are big, exciting things this week. Let's talk about some of our smaller bits of news, such as I ran into this device and I thought it was pretty cool. Republic Wireless, which is a company that makes, well, they were a cellular MVNO. I don't know what they're doing now, but they launched this device called the Relay, and it's designed for kids. And basically, it's a speaker with a button on it. When you press the button, it'll send a short voice message to your parent's phone. So they can get that message in SMS form, and they can respond via SMS, and the device will read the message back to your kids. Or if you have two of them, you can actually just have them set up as like a little intercom system between the two, which I think is really cool. We have actually used our Amazon Echo and Google Homes as this kind of thing for talking to our daughter, both when she's upstairs, but also when she is at home and we're away from home and we just want to like check in with her, or she wants to check in with us. A single one will cost $99 and two costs $149.
Ouch.
It is kind of pricey, but it's nice if you don't have a landline. And it basically gives you the equivalent of a home phone to you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like an SMS CB radio to me. It's not a voice device.
That's true if you don't have both of them.
Right.
And I should say they do have a service fee of $7 per month, because this is basically like a cellular CB radio.
Sure. Hey, you know what this reminds me of? And I don't know if you recall it. Do you remember the Peak, the small email device? It did nothing but email. Yeah.
You're not excited by this.
I'm not. I mean, listen, I don't have younger kids these days. So, obviously I'm not the target customer. And for people who are the target customer, okay, I get it. Because there probably aren't a ton of great options in this space. So I get it. I do. You don't need every kid to have an iPhone 10 and paying, $40, $60 a month if they're 6 years old. You just need some way to talk to them when they're home. I get it. But yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Kevin's not spending the money. I don't know if you guys will.
I'm saving for Misty.
Maybe you save your money for Misty, or maybe you save it for this summer, because I was talking with someone from Philips Lighting, and they're going to launch a colored outdoor light this summer. So I know nothing more than that, but I got very excited about color tunable, outdoor capable Philips Hue bulbs. Party time!
Yeah, I was going to buy like a fire pit. Maybe I can just get some colored bulbs to flicker like fire.
Yes, that is definitely a cheaper solution than a fire pit.
not as warm, but it would work.
All right. Kevin, you've got some survey data just for those of us.
Yes, there's not a ton here, but I just happened to see this infographic and survey from Matova. They have surveyed people in the US, and these numbers are kind of staggering. They say, from the survey respondents, over 90% of consumers in the US have a connected home device. Now, I presume they're not including like a router or something like that.
Or
that
Kindle,
would have to be.
Or a Kindle.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, although even the new Kindle tablets, I just bought one, has hands-free Madam A built into it. It's crazy. And speaking of Madam A, the results from Matova's survey say that nearly 70% already have a voice-controlled system such as Madam A. 58% who own a connected home device are concerned about how it may impact their privacy. I would hope it'd be more than that. And 30% who do not have a connected home device currently do plan to make a purchase within the year. So these numbers sounded higher to me, except for the concern about privacy. I thought that would be higher. But 90% in the US have a connected home device.
Well, then and then 30% of those 10%.
Of those who don't. So yeah, exactly. 30% of the 10%.
Well, apparently growth is done there. Now we're just going to sell more connected devices into each home. Who knows?
Yeah. And mesh network routers.
And here's how we're going to do it. Madam A is coming to more stuff. This time, TiVo. Dun, dun, dun.
I never had a TiVo.
Me either. I kind of forgot about it. But hey, if you have one, now you can control it with Madam A. Great.
Yeah, I was looking to see what you could actually do, and it's pretty full featured. I mean, you can skip commercials by voice with the TiVo skip mode. You can launch apps, change channels by name or number. Of course, the regular controls of play, resume, pause, fast forward, rewind. So, this isn't just like turn on the TV. This is a bunch of stuff.
It is. And if you would like to spend even more money on connected devices, Arlo, Netgear's smart home brand, is going into security lighting, outdoor lighting for the home. So they already make cameras, both wired and wireless cameras for the home, and I think they make a baby monitor. It's adorable. It has little bunny ears. Okay. But now they have lights, and these lights also change colors. Holy mackerel! Not just the Philips. You can now buy outdoor Arlo lights. These are security lights, so you're probably going to have them on bright white most of the time. But, if you're me and you enjoy this stuff, maybe you do something else. So you can buy the system, which is one camera plus a little converter hub thing.
It's a bridge, Arlo bridge.
Thank you. That's
yeah.
I
got a bridge I'd like to sell you.
So yes, a bridge for $149.99, which is kind of a lot of money. Or you can buy two for $249.99. That's a lot of money, actually. But this compares with things like the Ring floodlight cam, and I feel like there are other. NetAtmo makes a presence cam that also has a floodlight on top of it. So there you go. More options in the lighting the outside of your home space.
They're very modern looking. I couldn't get this past my HOA here, unfortunately, who still seems stuck in the 90s. I like the looks of them, and they're wire-free. I mean, they have rechargeable batteries, too. That's kind of nice.
Yes, and if they're anything like the cameras, they're so much fun because they've got this magnetic mount, and you just like, thunk, and it just like, I'm stuck on this. It's awesome.
And they work with Madam A as well.
They do. So, and the bridge is a nice touch because beforehand, for my camera, I have a massive hub bridge device that is plugged into my router, and it's kind of large and cumbersome. So this looks smaller and cuter.
Yeah, this is much smaller.
So sadly, it does not work. The Netgear routers do not interface with this for some reason. So sad. And now it's time for another camera. Kevin?
Oh, that's right. Yes, the WiseCam version 2. I decided to put a camera in the back window of our townhouse. I already have a front camera with a Nest indoor camera behind the window. Unfortunately, I can't put cameras outside, so I have to deal with screens in my windows that the cameras look through, but that's okay. $20. I mean, long story short, if you need a camera, for $20, you cannot go wrong with the new WiseCam. It's very similar to the old one. It's got a matte finish on the outside instead of glossy. Otherwise, it looks the same. They've upgraded the sensor inside. They have also added motion detection tagging. So you always had motion detection, which would tell the camera, yes, capture this video, somebody's walking past, whatever. But now they actually show you in the app or in the video a little yellow border of where the motion is, because maybe there are multiple things moving and you need to know what set the camera off. You can do that. I did not test the SD card functionality just because I'm out of SD cards, but just like the old version of the camera, you can keep all of your information local for that, or you can use their cloud, which is actually run on AWS, I found out. And it's 14 days of history for free. There's no subscription charge. So $20 does it. That's it. I don't know. You tried the original one. Do you recall if you could daisy chain multiple ones on a single power cord?
Oh, I don't think so. Because you could daisy chain them on a power strip, but you can't connect them together. No.
So what they did with this one is they have a micro USB port for the power brick that comes with this. You power it through the micro USB slot, but there's also a full-sized USB port, and you can daisy chain through that up to 2 more cameras.
That's really cool.
One power cord can power all 3 cameras over USB. Huh. But I only bought one, so I didn't daisy chain.
Well, that's actually kind of a neat feature. I'm like, you could create a literal ring of security. They could all be looking at each other.
Well, you couldn't call it a ring of security, though.
No, you could not. I could, because I was literally talking about a ring of security. However, there are companies that would be upset with that. So we'll move on from that. Yay, WiseCam. I really liked the camera. I think it's a great purchase for anyone who just wants to experiment with what you can do with the camera. And they actually have added if this then that compatibility. So yay for that. You can now use it to, like, if it triggers motion, it could set off a light or an alarm or something else. Whatever.
Or you could geofence with your phone and if this then that to turn the WiseCam on when you leave, for example.
See, I'm all about like penalizing people who I catch on my motion detection.
Yeah, I've noticed.
You are much nicer.
I look for the good in every product.
So you also bought something else, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes,
I was surprised to see you bought this.
So I bought what you talked about last week or the week before. That was the Nest X Yale lock. I already have a smart lock. It's a quick-set Z-Wave lock in lovely brass. Thank you, HOA. But the motor was insanely loud on that thing. So I decided, let me try this Nest. And wow, it's like, by comparison, whisper quiet. It's so much quieter. I mean, yes, you can hear the motor, but it's so much quieter. Put another way, the quick set was so loud that when the girls were watching TV, they would pause what they were watching because they couldn't hear the TV while the lock motor engaged. No problem now. So I know you had bad hardware, I guess, faulty hardware, so you had to send yours back. You got a new one and it's working. I thought I did too because I put it in the door, it took all of 20 minutes and fired it up and it says, press the Yale button to configure your Nest lock. And I did it and nothing happened on the touchpad.
And he sent me the video and I was like, oh,
it happened to him.
Legit issue.
But no, it wasn't a legit issue. I guess you could call it installer error. I decided, let me just make sure the cable is fully seated because every one of these locks has a cable from the front keypad area to the back smarts area, the board. And sure enough, it was angled a little bit. So obviously during the installation, it came unseated. So I seated it, reseated it, put everything back together. And sure enough, it worked just fine. So it's working great. The girls are very happy. I'm happy.
It's a beautiful lock.
Even in brass. Yes. I guess I am bitter about that. Yeah, it's really, really nice. It's very sleek. It's much nicer than the Quickset that I had. And I feel like it's a little more robust of a lock as well.
The Yale locks are better than the Quickset locks. Yes, they're a higher quality lock.
Yes.
Yes, and I checked, just for you guys who are like, well, Stacy, was that what happened to you? I did check the cable seat or the connection between my cable 3 times. I will note that when you're installing it, should you buy this and install it, it's not a crazy error to get, because putting the cable into the wire guides that they have, it's a little thick and it requires a little nudging around, and it's very easy for the cable to become a little bit disconnected. So you have to watch that when you're installing it.
Yep, but it was an easy fix, and I didn't have in the past the Nest Connect. And I got that included with it because for I think it's $279.99 for the lock with the Connect. It's $249.99 if you already have a Connect. And I'm not a fan of hubs and bridges, extra ones anyway. But this is unlike anything else that I have, because it looks like a small module you just plug into an outlet near Nest products. And it didn't even need to be plugged in for me to configure it to my Wi-Fi network.
Right. It is a very nice experience.
It's very nice. I like it. I like it a lot. So I was also excited the very day I installed this that Yale announced support for Madam A voice unlocking for their locks. You could already lock your door with Madam A on the Yale locks, but now you can also unlock. And when you do that, it'll ask for you to recite your PIN code. So that way somebody couldn't just shout, "Hey, unlock the door," and let themselves in. But then my enthusiasm was tempered because this is not for the Nest, which I actually thought it was. It's only for their Assure locks.
Oh, and Schlage also, I want to say last week or the week before, also announced unlock features for their Connect and Sense locks. So I think through Madam A. So same thing, that you've got to have a PIN. And actually, if you misstate the PIN more than 3 times, it locks you out for a while. So there you go. That's their security measures there. Oh, speaking of Schlage, which is the sponsor of the Internet of Things podcast listener hotline, it's time to take a call from one of our listeners. The IoT podcast listener hotline is brought to you by Schlage, maker of electronic locks. Schlage electronic locks offer unparalleled convenience and simplicity all on their own, right out of the box. So you don't have to have a smart home system to benefit. To see what's possible, visit schlage.com to learn more. And we have a message this week from Kyle. Kyle, let's hear your message.
Hey guys, this is Kyle from Tampa, Florida, and I'm calling about the smart home routines that you wanted to call in about. So I just wanted to give you what I thought was a cool routine. I recently received my connected alarm panel from Kickstarter. I was an early Kickstarter backer. I got my connected alarm panel, and I'm really happy with it because I could integrate my pre-wired alarm system with my Samsung SmartThings hub. One of the things I did was I bought a bunch of Wise cameras and put them around the house, but I really don't want them recording when we're home for privacy reasons. So I put them all up to smart switches, and I set it up so the alarm, when it arms as away mode when I leave the house, automatically turns on all those smart switches, turns on all my cameras inside my house, and there's recording while my alarm is enabled and I'm outside the house. And then when I return home, it all automatically turns off, the alarm disarms itself, and all my cameras turn off. That way, I have them going if anything happens when I'm away from the house, but they're not recording when I'm inside the house. And I just thought that was a pretty cool routine. So appreciate the show, and have a great day.
Way to go, Kyle, for using the cheap Wise cams to do something fun. I love this idea of playing with the connected alarm system that's connected with a K, for those of you folks who are out there going, wait, how can I make my older alarm system smarter? That is how. If you guys have a question or you want to share a smart tip or trick with our users, give us a call at 512-623-7424. And now, stay tuned for our guest, Chris Myers from Misty Robotics. Misty is a personal robot aimed at developers. It's going right now for $1,600 through a crowdfunding campaign, and that won't ship until December 4th, but you'll hear more about it, and it's pretty freaking cool, you guys. And now, a message from this week's sponsor. Hey everyone, we are taking a break from the Internet of Things podcast for a message from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is MachineQ, a Comcast service. And I have Alex Karam here to talk about MachineQ and some of its use cases. So Alex, remind us one more time, what is MachineQ?
MachineQ is an enterprise-grade network specifically built for IoT. We're working with B2B and B2B2C IoT solution providers to help them get their product faster to market by providing the network layer for them.
So, Alex, who are MachineQ's end users?
First, let's define what we mean by end user. MachineQ's customers include IoT solution providers who test and bundle our connectivity as part of their go-to-market plans. Some have new devices they are designed to be LoRa compliant, while others are actively converting cellular, Z-Wave, Wi-Fi, Zigbee devices to our LoRa network. MachineQ also sells connectivity directly to SMB, mid-market, and enterprise businesses who need LoRaWAN IoT network connectivity to deploy their latest IoT applications. These customers cross nearly all market segments, from agriculture to industrial to retail and beyond. Once an end user then chooses one of our solution providers that is working with us, they recognize that MachineQ has many, many different services who are being built upon this platform. So rather than having a bespoke RFP or going to a contract manufacturer to help them out with their new use case, they look to us and our portfolio of solutions, and they ask us whether we can provide X, Y, Z as well.
And as we've continued to discuss on the show, once they have this connectivity, that really enables them to do a lot more with their business. Can you give us an example of that?
Yes. Pansophic is one of our solution providers who purchases connectivity from Comcast. One of their end user customers, the New York Housing Authority, has been deploying the Pansophic solution using the MachineQ network. Pansophic first installed the MQ Flex device from MachineQ, which is a multi-use device for temperature, humidity, vibration, and other monitoring capabilities. They began monitoring temperature and humidity first. Then they started adding air sensors to detect mold. Then they started adding leak detection sensors throughout the building as well. We often find customers starting with one particular need and then layering on additional sensors and services as they grow. Most of our solution providers are sort of single-threaded, and they go in and their end users ultimately one thing they've identified as a hero use case. So we say, let's say temperature and humidity detection is use case number one. Once they're in there with our connectivity, the end user might come back to them, let's say the landlord, and say, by the way, I also need something for pest control for my building. And it goes from there.
Excellent. All right, Alex, where can I go to find out more about MachineQ?
You can start with our website at MachineQ.com. We have some great white papers there, including our latest on dense networks. In addition to that, we have technical business conversion guides and network coverage detail as well.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and today's guest is Chris Meyer, who is head of developer experience at Misty Robotics. Hi Chris, how are you doing?
Hey Stacey, good to be here.
So you guys are on the show to settle Kevin's and my debate over robots in the smart home. That's not true, although you can totally weigh in. I say a robot without arms can't do anything, is useless. He wants just a camera that he can talk to via Madam A or some other digital assistant. So now you know the framing of the debate. So what we're going to do first is have you talk to us about what is Misty.
So Misty is our attempt to try to democratize robotics. So we realize that robotics as an industry is still in its infancy. So we're trying to give people a robot that is sensor-rich that they don't have to build from scratch.
Okay, now you guys just launched the Misty. There is a Kickstarter. I'll put that in the show notes, you guys. But give us the parameters of what this is. So if I'm like, listening to this, what kind of robot am I talking about?
Got it. So Misty is like I said, a sensor-rich robot that we're trying to just work. So you don't have to know control systems. You don't have to know mechanical engineering. You don't have to know software engineering, firmware, and all this other stuff. So it's programmable via JavaScript and Python. How would you describe Misty? She's cute. She's round. No hard edges. She has a track drive system and 3 degrees of freedom in the neck. So it can do the roll, the head tilt, which is really sweet, really cute. And then a 4-inch eye set, or 4-inch LCD for eyes and expression.
She looks kind of like Wall-E with the little, she's got the little round robot eyes. She runs around on, tank treads. And how fast can it go?
I think our actual spec is 0.7 meters per second, so a fast walk.
Okay. And the vision is that this robot is going to be roaming around homes and maybe small offices doing what?
Well, that's what we're trying to enable people to figure out. Everybody uses a computer differently, and we know that everybody's going to use and interact with a robot differently. So one of the things that I use mine for is it'll wait in the foyer, and if it recognizes myself or my wife first, then it'll play my Spotify playlist, but if she's there first, it'll play her Pandora station.
Ooh, so is there like a race to get in your front door?
That's exactly what it is, trying to get off work early.
Nice. We have that in my house, but it's for the air conditioning.
Ah.
Like cold, hot. So there have been a lot of efforts with smart home robotics, and some of your team is actually from SmartThings. So what did you guys learn from kind of the previous experience at SmartThings, and I think some of you guys were from Sphero, that you're taking into this project?
So I know on the SmartThings side, trying to do something that is developer focused and kind of programmable, you have a hard time putting that towards a consumer market up front with maintaining the programmability. So with Misty, what we're trying to do is really focus on developers and makers and programmers especially. It's for them first. When we figure out what those consumer applications are, then we'll have it in Misty 3 as being more consumer friendly.
Got it. So guys, this is not necessarily the robot you want to give to your mom, but it has some cool stuff. So they showed me the robot. It's got like this little, they call it a backpack area. It's an area on the back. You can load all kinds of stuff in it. You were talking actually about an Arduino and I think an Echo. So what are some things you hope people try to do with this?
Yeah, so because it's focused on programmers, the hardware extensibility becomes a really critical component in that. So we have an Arduino backpack that plugs in to the back of the unit. And we also have open source connectors for the arms and an antenna on the head that you can add sensors or whatever the case might be. But then route that all through your Arduino or Raspberry Pi to make it accessible to Misty. So if I wanted to add a barometric sensor that was run through my Arduino and then take barometric sensor readings around different areas of my house, that I could do that rather easily.
I'm trying to ponder why you would want a barometric sensor reading around your house, but...
Well, maybe temperature would be a better case. Having a heat map of why my bedroom is always cold is a little bit more interesting than the barometric pressure in my bedroom.
Got it. Okay, this does make more sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about robots in general, because we've seen a lot of activity right now, not just right now, over the last few years in robots. You talked about it being in its infancy. What do you mean by that?
So we've been trying to crack robotics for 40, 50, 60 years. And there hasn't been a real application in the home or office as of yet. There's Roomba, there's some of these other things which are utility-based or single purpose. But the problem with robotics today is people are continually building robots for a single purpose. So if you draw the parallel between computers in the 70s and 80s, people were in garages building computers, the competitions. I can build a computer in 80 chips versus 50 chips. So this is where robotics is today. And that's what I mean by the infancy. What we saw with personal computers is once VisiCalc was invented and people started to have like a real use in the home and office for computers, you started to see that upward escalation of adoption. So what we're trying to do is make those things accessible and get people thinking about what they would do with a robot after it's built. Like instead of worrying about control systems and path planning and, charging, that, okay, if those things are given, what do I do with the thing?
Indeed. What do I do with it? And this gets to the hands versus roaming debate. So where do you fall on our debate?
Physical manipulation of objects is a very, very difficult problem. So obviously, as a robotics company, we want to bite off what we think that we can swallow. So we made a deliberate effort to say, okay, let's not tackle physical manipulation up front, but start thinking about how do you change the recipe when you have something that's physical, that's mobile, that is autonomous in the home. The same way that when you're programming a computer, there's different things that you consider when you're programming a mobile device. So those learnings with physicality are going to change the next iteration of robotics. So we want to start there. And then when we have the ability to grab things and say like, hey, that's a Red Bull can or that's, a balloon that I can move those things, that'll enhance what we've already laid the groundwork for.
Okay, so I should kind of just give up for another 10 years on the robot that's going to come around, fold my laundry, chop my vegetables.
Well, there is Laundroid, right?
I am not spending that kind of money for a single-purpose device.
Yeah. Well, and one that takes 8 hours to fold a sack full of shirts or whatever their actual use case is. But
True. Okay, so let's talk about some of the competition because we've had, I think, Jibo is the most famous. There's also Curry, now, random robots running around. Do you think what happened with Jibo is going to hurt the market for what you're trying to offer?
I think it's kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's very clear that people want robots in some sense. They raised, I forget what their actual dollar value was with their Kickstarter.
It was a lot.
It was a lot. And then, 3 years delayed and the things that were in the Kickstarter of it. And we were really hopeful to get to that point where everything that was shown is possible. And what we've realized with robotics is it's not a linear complexity scale. You can't add movement and physicality and then all these other subsystems and then have it be like, 3 times more complicated than building a cell phone or whatever the case is. But it's actually factorially more difficult. So We're very glad that Jibo's in the space. We love those guys. We know them very well. But people are more skeptical about some of the promises that people in robotics are making.
Yes. So you guys, speaking of promises, you're doing the Kickstarter and you expect to ship sometime in December?
December 4th, yes. And it's not technically a Kickstarter. It is a crowdfunding campaign, but we're going to build it regardless. I mean, thankfully, we already hit our goal, so it makes it a lot easier.
So let's talk about designing the robot and the types of things that you've put in because, like you said before, it's cute. Or maybe I said that. It's adorable, you guys. It really is. So when designing it, how much did cuteness matter, the personality?
So we realized that personality is the long tail. When you start to have something that people engage with and meaningfully interact with and has some of that characteristics that really make it lovable, that's going to be one of the things that really bonds people to their robot. In the short term, it's really about programmability and getting the unit itself to work and function in the very difficult environment of the home and office. So when we came to the design, we wanted to enable some of that flexibility and experimentation through the programmability of the robot, and then figure out what are those elements that make it cute and personal and personality come through and some of those things. So one of the things we invested heavily in was we have 3 degrees of freedom in the neck. So instead of just, up, down, left, right, we also have roll. That is the head tilt.
Oh, yeah. Like when your dog does that, you're just like, of course I'm going to give you a sausage.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is such a powerful, emotive capability. And then we put the screen behind a lens because we didn't want what we call tablet face. We don't want it to look like we just slapped an Android phone inside the robot. That adds like another layer of not so much mystery, but personality. That it's kind of in a helmet, so to speak.
It's helping it cross the uncanny valley or live on the other side of it in a cute way?
Yeah, exactly.
So we talked about Jibo, but what about the Now robot from it's SoftBank? It used to be Alderbodine. Anyway, they make the Pepper robot. The Now actually reminded me very much so of Misty in its size, the fact that it was aimed at developers. Are you guys competitive in any way there?
I mean, it's a different price point. If I recall, one, you have to fill out the application to get it, and I believe they're more than $7,000, I believe. And it's just different. It's multi-joint. It's got legs. It's got fingers. It's got a lot of these other
It has the arms I'm looking for.
Yes, but it doesn't pick things up. Yeah, so.
It does the Macarena.
That's very true. But it doesn't have, the difference is for us is it doesn't have expressive eyes. It is leg-based. They use a proprietary system called Choreograph, which is a little bit, there's a learning curve to it. I'll leave it at that.
Now, one of the things we talked about earlier was that programming a robot is not what people expect. So if I bought this versus maybe another robot, what would that experience be like?
So my role is the head of developer experience. So I'm trying to mitigate that cognitive dissonance between the way that you expect to program a robot and the way that you actually program a robot. So Misty is programmable via JavaScript and Python. And anybody that can build a website should be able to meaningfully program Misty. So you can do things with a few lines of code like go to the kitchen, where you can name XY locations in its occupancy grid and say, go there and not have to handle path planning. What do I do if I encounter an obstacle? What happens if I hear a loud noise? I can stop or whoever the case. But we're trying to make it as easy as possible for anybody to be able to do the things that you want to do without worrying about the lower level programmability.
And what does that lower level programming look like?
So let's say that we take another wheeled robot. If I wanted to say, go to the kitchen, what I'd have to do without these subsystems is I would have to generate a map, do the path planning, and then go down to the low level of drive my motors in a certain way to turn left, turn right, avoid obstacles, and then build the entire system around that. To where what Misty is doing is we're trying to do all the heavy lifting for you. So you can operate at that high level of go to kitchen without having to do all of the stuff down below that.
Do you like ease of use and simplicity? Okay, so I have to ask you about this because apparently I can't even do it, you guys.
Oh,
wow.
No.
Okay. I'm going to have to ask you because we had a conversation about farting and flatulence and robots. So why do robots fart?
Flatulence is one of the things that makes robots extremely personal very, very, very quickly. It's one of the things that's a biological function, but then when a robot does it, it's so unexpected that it's really kind of funny. I think it's one of the things that makes a lot of us giggle when, the whole concept of a robot coming into the room, waiting until you see an individual making a fart noise and then leaving the room. I think it's just juvenile, but entertaining.
I would giggle. You're right. Okay. And because kids find this sort of thing funny, let's talk about kids in robotics, because it feels like we're in this weird, like, what do we do? How do we train them how to be around a robot? So what are your thoughts there? I don't know if you have kids.
I have a 2-year-old. Yes. I mean, I personally think that robots are going to be a very powerful driver for people to live the lives that they want. So encouraging behavior, monitoring, and making your own awareness of how you live your life, and then being useful. So when it comes to kids, getting them familiar with it and then how they would use them is going to be really, really important. So STEM education is a big factor in what we think about. So programmability, how to program a robot, and then interacting.
So I'm thinking about kids just behaving like total jerks to robots. And I don't know if your 2-year-old is, I'm sure he is a very nice person, but how does he react to your robot? And is he getting to the point where he's abusing it or taking it for granted?
I think one of his first words was actually robot. So maybe I'm an outlier in a lot of these cases. It's more curiosity. I know that every time that it's sitting on and I'm kind of messing with it, that he'll wave at it, which is really adorable.
Does it wave back?
It does, but I have to program it to do that, obviously. My son hasn't been too abusive. I think in scenarios where there's groups of people, that there's going to be, robot abuse. You see the night scope and some of the things that have happened in Palo Alto where kids kick it and stuff like that. I think what we're hoping is that some of the personality will come through into where it's like, if you kick it, we have an IMU, an internal measurement unit that can detect when it's being jostled or something like that, but have it react like, ow.
My heart might break if like a robot owed when I tripped over it, just like my dog. Okay, so I think of this robot, I feel like it'd be like a slightly more useful pet roaming around my home. Yeah. But is that the wrong way to think about that, or is that how you'd like people to think about this in the future?
I mean, that's kind of a difficult question because it depends on how you expect to interact with it. I like the idea of having something that roams around and be like, hey, Misty, did I leave my oven on? Or like, hey, Misty's my dog on the couch. So that element of telepresence is really fascinating. But I know some people that have large families or something, that the last thing that they want is another thing to interact with at the end of the day. So having the quiet robot might be more desirable to them.
Like a Jeeves setting. Okay. Anything else you want to tell us about Misty?
So we've got 2 weeks left for you to sign up to get your Misty 2 for $1,600 at our 50% off.
Oh, so it's normally $3,200? Oh gosh, you guys. I don't know if I should tell you to buy now or wait till it's $3,200 and be sure. All right. So there you have it. Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah, my pleasure, Stacey. This is fun.
That's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, if you'd like more IoT news, sign up for my newsletter at stacyoniot.com. We'll see you next week.